The war began exactly 1 week after the hegemony sent their surrender demands. Their massive fleet appeared at the edge of human space like a dark cloud blocking out the stars. Supreme Coordinator Zethkal commanded over 10,000 ships, filled with urban purification devices that could destroy entire cities in minutes. Colonel Danny Brooks was in charge of defending New Geneva, which was humanity's first colony, outside the solar system. The planet had 3 cities built in typical human style with winding streets and mixed neighborhoods. When the hegemony fleet arrived, Danny knew they would target New Geneva first to send a message to the galaxy. All units prepare for orbital bombardment, Danny announced over the colony's communication system. They want to destroy our cities, but we are not going to let them. The hegemony ships moved in perfect formation like a geometric pattern against the black of space. Their attack came exactly at the time their computers calculated would be most efficient. Bright beams of energy shot down from space toward the human cities below. But something unexpected happened. The Zephyrian fleet appeared from behind New Geneva's moon and intercepted the attack. Vexithara had brought 200 ships to help defend the human colony. Right behind them came ships from the Crystalline Collective and the Mechanic Assembly, and dozens of other species. "This is High Counselor Vexithara to all hegemony forces," came her voice over the radio. "You will not destroy these cities. We stand with humanity in defense of the right to live in beautiful chaos." The space battle that followed was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. The hegemony ships fought with perfect precision and mathematical accuracy. Every shot was calculated and every movement was planned. But the Alliance ships fought with the same chaotic creativity that human cities were built, with Zephyrian ships swooped and danced through space in patterns that made no logical sense but somehow worked perfectly. Crystalline ships coordinated their attacks through individual decision-making instead of hive mind control. Even the robotic Mechanic Assembly ships began improvising, tactics that their programming said were impossible. Lieutenant Sarah Adams was piloting a fighter ship during the battle and could not believe what she was seeing. "Command, the enemy ships cannot predict what we are going to do, because we do not know what we are going to do ourselves." The chaotic fighting style confused the hegemony's tactical computers. Their ships were designed to fight against logical planned attacks, but the Alliance forces were using pure improvisation and instinct. Within 6 hours, the hegemony fleet was forced to retreat. But the real war was not happening in space. It was happening on planets all across the galaxy, where alien populations were rising up against their own governments. The news of the battle at New Geneva spread instantly and inspired billions of beings to demand the right to build human-style cities. Engineer Pete Collins was working with a mixed team of humans and aliens to develop new technologies for the war effort. Pete was a tall, thin man with red hair who was very good at fixing things and making them work better. His team included Zephyrians and crystal beings and robots from the Mechanic Assembly. "The amazing thing is how much better we work together when we combine our different ways of thinking," Pete explained to Dr. Webb during one of their research meetings. "The Zephyrians understand energy flow in ways we never thought of. The crystal beings can process information faster than our computers. The robots have precision we could never match. Working together in the same chaotic, collaborative way that human cities grew, the mixed teams were developing weapons and defenses that neither side could have created alone. They built energy shields that adapted and changed instead of staying static. They created ships that could repair themselves by learning from damage patterns. Most importantly, they developed something called chaos field generators that could make any area completely unpredictable. When activated, these devices made it impossible for the hegemony's perfect planning systems to function. The war's turning point came when Captain Rita Morgan led a secret mission deep into hegemony space. Rita had discovered that even the hegemony's capital world had secret human-style neighborhoods hidden underground. Her mission was to make contact with the resistance movement and help them coordinate a massive uprising. Rita's ship was painted black and equipped with the latest stealth technology. She landed on Hegemony Prime in the middle of the night and made her way through the perfect geometric streets to a hidden entrance that led underground. What she found there amazed her. Beneath the perfect city above was an entire underground metropolis built in human style. There were winding tunnels and small neighborhoods and even parks with artificial sunlight. Thousands of hegemony citizens were living secret lives away from the rigid control of their government. "Welcome, human," said Resistance leader Quartex, who looked like a giant insect with metal armor. "We have been waiting for someone like you to help us." Rita walked through the underground city and saw beings from all 12 hegemony species living together in chaotic harmony. They had built their own version of human-style neighborhoods with curved streets and mixed housing and public spaces where people gathered just to enjoy each other's company. "How long has this been going on?" Rita asked while recording everything with her camera. "Ever since we first learned about human cities 5 years ago," Quartex explained. "At first, only a few young people tried building different kinds of homes. But the idea spread quickly because it made people happier than they had ever been." Rita learned that there were secret human-style cities on over 100 hegemony worlds. Millions of beings were living double lives with perfect obedience above ground and chaotic freedom below ground. They were all waiting for the signal to rise up and overthrow their rigid governments. "We need you to coordinate our uprising with your military actions," Quartex said. "When your forces attack our fleets, we will seize control of our cities from below." Rita spent 3 days helping the Resistance plan their rebellion. They would take control of the communication systems and broadcast the truth about human cities to their entire population. They would disable the urban purification devices and turn them against the government buildings instead. When Rita returned to Alliance space, she brought the most important intelligence of the war. The hegemony was not as unified as everyone thought. Their own people were ready to embrace the beautiful chaos of human-style civilization if someone would show them how. The final battle would not be won by destroying enemy ships. It would be won by inspiring enemy populations to choose freedom over perfection. News of the human cities spread faster than anyone expected. Within 3 weeks, every major civilization in the galaxy knew about the Zephyrian experiment. Admiral Hayes moved the human fleet to a safe position near the edge of Zephyrian space while they waited to see what would happen. Next, Commander Alex Turner was leading a small exploration ship called the Pioneer through the Andromeda sector when he got the strangest message of his career. The Crystalline Collective wanted to meet with humans immediately. The Collective was a race of beings that looked like walking diamonds and had never talked to anyone outside their own species before. Alex landed his ship on their capital world and found something amazing. The crystal beings had torn down their perfect geometric hive cities and were building something completely new. Instead of living in connected crystal towers, they were now building separate houses with yards and gardens between them. Commander Crystal Song of Dawn met Alex at the landing site. She was 8 feet tall and her body was made of clear blue crystal that rang like bells when she moved. "Human Commander, we must thank your species for showing us a new way to live." Alex walked with her through the new city and could not believe what he saw. Crystal beings were working in small gardens growing flowers that had no purpose except to be beautiful. Young crystal beings were playing games in open spaces that served no function except fun. Older crystal beings were sitting together in groups just talking and enjoying each other's company. "For 50,000 years, we lived in perfect efficiency," Crystal Song of Dawn explained as they walked. "Every crystal being had their exact place in the hive structure. We shared thoughts and worked as one mind. But we never knew what we were missing." She led Alex to a crystal garden where hundreds of crystal beings were creating art. They were making sculptures and music and light shows that served no purpose except to bring joy. When we learned about human cities, we decided to try something new. We gave our people individual homes and privacy and choice about how to spend their time. Alex was amazed by what he saw. "What happened when you made these changes?" "Everything changed," Crystal Song of Dawn said with excitement that made her body shine brighter. "Our birth rate increased by 300% in just 2 months. Our scientists started making discoveries they never would have made while connected to the hive mind. Our artists began creating beauty we never knew was possible." Meanwhile, Dr. Nancy Rodriguez was studying reports from all over the galaxy from her research station. Nancy was a small woman with curly brown hair who had spent her whole career studying how different civilizations developed. What she was seeing now was completely new to science. The mechanic assembly had been a race of robot-like beings who turned entire planets into giant factories. Their cities were perfect machines designed only for production and efficiency. But after learning about human urban design, they had started something they called the Great Restructuring. Factory worlds that had been nothing but industrial buildings for thousands of years were suddenly sprouting parks and residential areas. The robot beings were building coffee shops and art galleries and music halls right in the middle of their production facilities. Most amazing of all, they were building these new areas in completely random and unplanned ways. Nancy received a message from Assembly Unit 7749, who had been designated as their spokesperson for talking to humans. Dr. Rodriguez, we must report that our productivity has increased by 40% since we began implementing human chaos principles in our city design. Nancy was confused. How can random, unplanned development increase productivity? We do not understand the mechanism either, Assembly Unit 7749 replied. But when our worker units have access to recreational spaces and social gathering areas, their efficiency and creativity increase dramatically. They develop new innovations and solve problems faster than when they worked in pure efficiency mode. The robot being sent her pictures of their factory worlds that now looked like a strange mix of industrial buildings and human neighborhoods. We have also experienced our first cases of individual robot units forming what you call friendships and even romantic partnerships. This was impossible under our previous programming, but is now happening naturally. But not everyone in the galaxy was happy about these changes. General Kevin Adams received intelligence reports at Earth Defense Command that made him very worried. The hegemony of perfect order was mobilizing the largest military force ever seen in galactic history. The hegemony was an alliance of 12 different species that all believed in absolute order and control. They saw the spread of human-style chaos as a dangerous infection that would destroy galactic civilization. Their leader was Supreme Coordinator Zethkol, who ruled over 300 billion beings across 50 star systems. Kevin studied the intelligence reports while drinking his morning coffee. The hegemony was building new weapons designed specifically to destroy cities. They called them urban purification devices, and they could turn any city into empty wasteland in minutes, sir. We are receiving surrender demands from the hegemony, reported Lieutenant Mike Johnson from the Communications Center. They want us to stop all contact with other species and return to Earth immediately. Kevin read the message on his screen. The hegemony was giving humanity 1 week to abandon all their new alien allies and promised never to share their city design ideas with anyone else. If humans refused, the hegemony would begin what they called the Great Purification. But the most surprising news came from inside hegemony space itself. Captain Rita Morgan was running a secret intelligence mission deep in enemy territory when she discovered something that changed everything. Even on hegemony world, some people were secretly building human-style neighborhoods. Rita landed her stealth ship on a hegemony factory world and used her sensors to scan the surface. Hidden between the perfect geometric buildings, she found small areas that looked exactly like human suburbs. There were houses with yards and curved streets and even playgrounds for children. Command, this is Morgan reporting from behind enemy lines. Rita whispered into her radio. The hegemony has a problem. Their own people are rebelling against perfect order and building human-style communities in secret. The revolution was spreading faster than anyone could stop it. Across the galaxy, millions of beings were discovering that they preferred the beautiful chaos of human cities to the cold perfection of planned societies. The hegemony could build all the weapons they wanted, but they could not stop an idea whose time had come. Kevin realized that humanity was about to fight the strangest war in galactic history. It would not be a war over territory or resources. It would be a war over the right to build messy cities and live chaotic lives. The tall building had an elevator that worked just like the ones on Earth. Jake and his team rode it up to the 40th floor where the light was coming from. When the doors opened, they saw a long hallway with soft blue lights on the walls. At the end of the hall was an open door. Inside the room, they found the most beautiful alien Jake had ever seen. She was tall and thin with silver skin that seemed to glow. Her eyes were large and green and her hair moved like water, even though there was no wind. She wore a long white dress that seemed to be made of light. "Welcome, humans," she said in perfect English. "I am High Counselor Vexthera of the Zephyrian Empire. We have been waiting a very long time to meet you." Dr. Webb stepped forward with his recording device. "How do you speak our language and how do you know about our cities?" Vexthera smiled and her face became even more beautiful. "We have been watching your world for 200 years. We have learned your languages and studied your cities very carefully. We have copied them because we need to understand how you live. Jake looked around the room and saw that it was full of pictures and models of Earth cities. There were perfect copies of buildings from all over the world. There were maps showing how the cities grew over time. There were books written in both English and alien writing. "Why do you need to understand our cities?" Lisa asked while setting up her communication equipment. Vex. Thara walked to a large window that looked out over the copied New York. "Because our civilization is dying and your cities might be the only thing that can save us." She pressed a button on the wall, and the window became like a television screen. It showed pictures of Zephyrian cities on other planets. These cities were very different from the human copies. They were perfectly planned with straight roads and buildings that all looked the same. Everything was clean and organized and mathematical. "For 10,000 years we have built perfect cities," Vexthara said sadly. "Every street goes exactly where it should go. Every building is the right size and shape. Every citizen lives in the perfect place for their job and family." Dr. Webb was writing notes as fast as he could. "What is wrong with perfect cities? Our people are dying inside," Vexithara said. "Our birth rate has dropped to almost nothing. Our young people feel empty and lost. No one creates art or music anymore. No one falls in love. No one dreams of anything new." Jake was starting to understand. "So you copied our messy cities to see if they would work better?" Vexithara nodded. "Your cities grow in ways that make no sense to us. Streets curve for no reason. Buildings are different sizes. Rich and poor people live next to each other. Parks are scattered everywhere with no logical pattern." She pressed another button and the screen showed the empty human cities on this planet. "We built perfect copies of your cities and moved some of our young people into them. Within 1 year, amazing things started happening." The screen showed young Zephyrians walking through Central Park. They were holding hands and laughing. They were sitting by the lake and talking for hours. They were playing music in the streets and painting pictures on walls. "In the human cities, our young people started acting like young people again," Vexthara said with excitement in her voice. "They began falling in love and having children. They started creating art and asking questions about life. They became alive in ways we had forgotten." Lisa was recording everything for the people back on Earth. "How many of your people live in the human cities now?" "Nearly 1 million on this planet alone," Vexithara said. "And we have copied human cities on 15 other worlds. The results are the same everywhere. Our people become more creative and happy when they live in human-style cities." Dr. Webb looked up from his notes. "Have other alien races noticed what you are doing?" Vexthara's face became worried. "Yes, and that is why we need your help. Word has spread across the galaxy about what we are doing. Some races want to learn from us, but others see human influence as a dangerous disease that must be stopped." She pressed more buttons and the screen showed star maps with red areas marked on them. "The hegemony of perfect order controls 1/3 of the galaxy. They believe that perfect planning and organization are the only ways to run a civilization. They think human chaos is evil." Jake felt a chill run down his back. "Are they planning to attack us?" "They are planning to attack everyone who uses human city designs," Vexithara said. "They want to destroy every human-style city in the galaxy and kill anyone who has been influenced by human culture." The room became very quiet. Jake and his team looked at each other with worry. They had come here to explore and make friends, but now they were learning about a war that was coming. Captain Williams's voice came through Lisa's radio. "Morrison, we are getting signals from all over the galaxy. Ships are moving toward this area. Some look friendly, but others do not." Dr. Webb walked to the window and looked out at the copied city below. "How many alien races have started copying human cities?" 47 that we know of, Vexithara said. "The Crystalline Collective has abandoned their hive cities for sprawling neighborhoods with gardens. The Mechanic Assembly has started building curved roads and mixed districts instead of pure factory zones." Jake realized that humanity had accidentally started a revolution across the galaxy just by building cities the way they always had. Their messy, unplanned approach to urban growth was changing how aliens thought about life itself. "What do you need from us?" Jake asked. Vexithara looked directly at him with her beautiful green eyes. "We need you to help us fight for the right to live in chaos. We need you to teach us how to embrace the beautiful mess of unplanned life, and we need you to help us survive what is coming." Outside the window, the copied city seemed to glow with new meaning. It was not just a copy anymore. It was a symbol of freedom and creativity that was spreading across the stars. Jake Morrison pressed his face against the cold glass of the observation deck and could not believe what he was seeing below. The planet looked like someone had taken Earth and copied it piece by piece. There was New York with its tall buildings reaching up to the sky. There was London with its old stone buildings and winding rivers. Tokyo spread out like a huge web of lights and streets. Paris sat in perfect order with wide roads going in all directions from the center. But this was not Earth. This was a planet called Zephyr Prime, and it was 50 light years away from home. Jake had been in space for 6 years, but he had never seen anything like this. The cities looked exactly like the ones back home, but they were all on one alien world. Captain Williams walked up behind him and put a hand on his shoulder. Williams was a big man with gray hair, who had been exploring space longer than anyone else on the ship. He looked down at the planet and shook his head slowly. "I have seen many strange things out here, but this beats them all," Williams said in his deep voice. "How did they get our cities?" Lisa Bennett was working at her computer station nearby. She was the one who talked to other ships and planets for their crew. Lisa had bright red hair and was very good at her job. She had been trying to contact whoever lived on this planet for 3 hours. "Captain, I am getting signals from down there," Lisa said while looking at her screen. "They know we are here and they want to talk." The UES Valiant was a big exploration ship with 200 people on it. They had been traveling for 8 months to reach this part of space. Earth had sent them to look for new planets and make friends with anyone they found. But nobody had expected to find their own cities on an alien world. Jake was the second in command of the ship. He had grown up in Chicago and had joined the space service when he was 18. He was now 32 and had seen many worlds, but none like this one. The cities below looked so real that he wanted to go home just looking at them. Admiral Patricia Hayes was in charge of the whole mission. She was on another ship called the Liberty, but she was talking to Captain Williams on the video screen. Hayes was a small woman with short black hair who never smiled much. She had been in charge of space missions for 15 years. "Williams, we need to be very careful here," Hayes said from the screen. "Someone down there has been watching us for a long time. They know too much about Earth." Williams nodded and looked at Jake. "Morrison, get ready to take a team down there. We need to find out what is going on." Jake felt excited and scared at the same time. He had been on many planets before, but never one that looked like home. He wondered if the people down there looked like humans too. He wondered how they had learned about Earth cities and why they had copied them. Dr. Marcus Webb came to the observation deck carrying his research books. Webb was the smartest person on the ship and knew everything about different kinds of life in space. He had gray hair and thick glasses and always asked too many questions. "This is very strange," Webb said while looking at the planet. "Most alien races build their cities in completely different ways than humans do. They use math and science to make everything perfect. But these cities look messy and random just like ours." Lisa turned around from her computer. "The aliens are sending us pictures and messages. They want us to land in the copy of New York." Captain Williams walked to the middle of the bridge where everyone could see him. "All right, people, listen up. We are going to make history today. We are the first humans to meet aliens who know about our world, but we do not know if they are friends or enemies." Jake started getting his equipment ready. He would take 5 people with him to the surface. They would wear special suits that could protect them from alien air and weapons. They would also carry cameras to record everything they saw. The copy of New York got bigger and bigger as their small ship flew down to the planet. Jake could see the tall buildings that looked exactly like the ones back home. He could see Central Park with its green trees and lake. He could see the streets full of cars that looked like human cars. But when they got closer, Jake saw that the cars were not moving. The streets were empty. There were no people walking around. The city looked perfect, but it was completely empty like a ghost town. Their ship landed in Times Square, which looked exactly like the real one on Earth. There were the same big signs with bright lights. There were the same tall buildings all around. But everything was quiet and still. Jake and his team stepped out of their ship and walked into the empty street. Their boots made loud sounds on the ground. The air felt thin and cold. Above them, the alien sun shone with a slightly blue light that made everything look a little different. "Where is everyone?" asked Lisa, who had come with them to handle communications. Dr. Webb was looking at his instruments and taking notes. "The air is safe to breathe, but I'm not reading any life signs in this area." Then they heard a sound like music coming from far away. It was not human music, but it was beautiful and sad. The sound came from one of the tall buildings nearby. Jake looked up at the building and saw a window with light in it. Someone or something was up there waiting for them. He knew that their real mission was just beginning. They had found aliens who knew about Earth and who had copied their cities. Now they had to find out why. The empty city around them felt like a puzzle waiting to be solved. Jake and his team started walking toward the building with the light, ready to meet whoever had been watching humanity from far away. The Great Liberation began at exactly midnight Galactic Standard Time, when resistance cells on 300 hegemony worlds simultaneously seized control of their communication networks. Billions of beings across hegemony space suddenly saw their first images of human cities and heard the truth about chaotic urban design for the first time. Supreme Coordinator Zethkol tried to maintain control from his command ship, but it was already too late. His own crew members were abandoning their posts to join the rebellion. Within 6 hours, the mighty hegemony fleet was dissolving as individual ships switched sides or simply stopped fighting. Ambassador Helen Carter watched the historic events unfold from the Bridge of the Liberty. She was a small woman with gray hair who had spent 20 years in diplomatic service but had never seen anything like this. Entire civilizations were changing sides in the middle of a war because they wanted the right to build messy cities. Captain Williams, we are receiving surrender offers from hegemony commanders all across the galaxy, reported Lisa Bennett from her communication station. They want to join the Alliance and learn how to build human-style cities for their people. The war ended not with a great battle, but with the largest celebration in galactic history. On world after world, beings were tearing down the walls that separated different districts in their perfect cities. They were planting gardens in the middle of industrial areas and building playgrounds next to government buildings. Dr. Marcus Webb was documenting the changes from his research station and could barely keep up with all the reports coming in. This is the fastest social transformation ever recorded, he told his research team. Entire species are changing their fundamental approach to civilization in a matter of days. The former hegemony worlds were being rebuilt according to new principles that combined the best of order and chaos. The rigid geometric cities were not completely destroyed, but they were being modified, with curves and parks and mixed-use areas that made no logical sense but somehow felt right. General Kevin Adams found himself in the strange position of overseeing the peaceful transformation of his former enemies. The hegemony's military leaders were asking humans to teach them how to organize their forces using chaotic collaboration instead of rigid command structures. Sir, the former hegemony fleet wants to participate in joint training exercises, reported Lieutenant Mike Johnson. They want to learn how to fight using improvisation and creativity instead of just following orders. But the most amazing changes were happening at the personal level. Across the galaxy, beings who had lived their entire lives in perfect order were experiencing chaos for the first time. They were falling in love with people they were not supposed to love. They were choosing careers that made them happy instead of careers that were most efficient. They were creating art and music just because it brought them joy. Admiral Patricia Hayes was chosen to be the first director of Galactic Urban Development. Her job was to help species across the galaxy learn how to build cities that balanced order and chaos in healthy ways. She set up her headquarters on Unity Station, which was the galaxy's first truly integrated city. Unity Station was built in the space between 3 different star systems, using the combined technologies of dozens of species. It had neighborhoods where humans lived next to crystal beings and Zephyrians and former hegemony members. The streets curved in patterns that served no purpose except to be beautiful. The buildings were all different sizes and shapes because each species had contributed their own architectural ideas. The amazing thing is how well it works, Hayes explained to a group of visiting diplomats. Everyone said that mixing different species and building styles would create chaos and conflict. Instead, it created the most vibrant and creative community any of us have ever seen. Dr. Nancy Rodriguez published her research on what she called the chaos principle. Her studies showed that societies with some degree of randomness and inefficiency were actually more stable and successful than perfectly planned societies. The slight disorder that humans brought to urban design allowed for adaptation and growth that perfect systems could not achieve. Perfect efficiency kills creativity, Nancy wrote in her famous report. Living systems need some degree of chaos to evolve and improve. Human cities work because they grow organically like forests instead of being built mechanically like machines. The Messy Cities Protocol became the galaxy's first universal charter, ensuring every species' right to build communities that reflected their unique character. It was signed by over 200 different civilizations, and became the foundation for a new kind of galactic government based on voluntary cooperation instead of imposed order. Jake Morrison was promoted to admiral and given command of the Exploration Division, which was responsible for helping newly discovered species learn about different approaches to civilization. He often thought about that first day when he looked down at the copied cities on Zephyr Prime and could not understand what he was seeing. The irony is that we never meant to teach anyone anything, Jake told his crew during one of their missions. We just built our cities the way that felt natural to us. We had no idea that our messy, unplanned approach would seem revolutionary to species that had spent thousands of years trying to achieve perfection. The former hegemony worlds were thriving under their new chaotic systems. Birth rates had increased dramatically across all 12 species. Scientific innovation was accelerating as researchers were encouraged to pursue crazy ideas that might not work. Artistic expression was flourishing as beings discovered the joy of creating things that served no purpose except beauty. Pete Collins established the Galactic Institute of Collaborative Engineering, where beings from different species worked together to solve problems using combined approaches. The Institute's first major project was designing a new type of city that could adapt and change over time as its population grew and evolved. The future belongs to organized chaos, Pete announced at the Institute's opening ceremony. We have learned that the best solutions come from combining order and disorder in creative ways. Vexithara became the first alien ambassador to Earth and spent her time traveling between worlds to help species learn from each other. She often visited the original copied cities on Zephyr Prime, which had become monuments to the power of beautiful chaos. These cities started as copies, but they became something entirely new, she explained to groups of visitors. They became symbols of the truth that life is most beautiful when it is allowed to grow wild and free. The galaxy had learned its most important lesson. Perfection was not the enemy of chaos, and chaos was not the enemy of order. They were partners in the eternal dance of life and civilization. Humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy was not their technology or their military strength, but their understanding that the most wonderful things in the universe happened when intelligent beings were free to build their dreams together in gloriously messy ways.